Arrest him! A millionaire is accused of theft by a store manager in front of everyone, but 2 days later he returns to see what happens. The morning sun filtered through the enormous windows of the Harrison mansion, illuminating the solitary figure of Jack. At 35 years old, he was the owner of a financial empire that made him one of the richest men in the country. However, fortune had failed to fill the void he felt in his heart since that fateful day 5 years ago. Jack looked in the mirror, adjusting the fake beard that was part of his elaborate disguise. His eyes, normally lively, reflected a mixture of determination and fear. "This is my last chance," he murmured to himself, remembering the face of Emma, the young waitress who had caught his attention just a few weeks ago. The memory of his ex-girlfriend, Rachel, assaulted him once again. The image of her, wrecked car at the foot of that cliff, still haunted him in his nightmares. Rachel had fled that night, overwhelmed by the pressure from the media and the expectations of Jack's social circle. He never forgave himself for not seeing the signs, for not protecting her from the toxicity surrounding his life. "This time will be different," Jack promised himself as he left his mansion through the service door, unrecognizable in his worn clothes and disheveled appearance. The plan was simple in theory: approach Emma as a man without resources, earn her trust and her love. Only then would he reveal his true identity. If she loved him as a beggar, her love would be true, right? As he walked the streets that led him to the modest restaurant where Emma worked, Jack couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. Wasn't he repeating the same mistake, building a relationship on a lie? But the fear of being loved only for his money was stronger. He needed to know that someone could see him for who he really was, beyond his fortune. Emma's Corner was a small establishment on a quiet corner of the city. Jack took a seat at a table far away, watching Emma move gracefully among the customers. Her smile was warm, but Jack noticed a shadow of sadness in her eyes that seemed familiar. Emma approached his table, notepad in hand. "Good morning. What can I get you?" she asked kindly. Jack felt his heart skip a beat. Up close, Emma was even more beautiful than he remembered. "A coffee, please," he replied in a hoarse voice, trying to maintain his character. "And maybe a little company if it's not too much trouble." Emma looked at him with a mixture of surprise and caution. After a moment of hesitation, she sat down across from him. "I have a few minutes before the lunch rush arrives," she said with a shy smile. Thus began a conversation that would last much longer than either of them had anticipated. Jack, playing his role as a humble man, shared invented stories about a life of struggle and overcoming. Emma, for her part, opened up little by little, revealing fragments of her own story. "I wasn't always a waitress, you know," Emma said with a hint of bitterness in her voice. "There was a time when my family had everything, but life takes many turns." Jack felt a pang of curiosity. What secrets did this young woman hide who seemed to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders? As they talked, the restaurant began to fill up. Emma apologized and returned to her duties, but not without giving Jack one last look. "Will you come back tomorrow?" she asked with a mixture of hope and caution in her voice. Jack nodded, feeling that he had just taken the first step on a path of no return. As he left the restaurant, he couldn't stop thinking about the connection he had felt with Emma. It was something real, something that went beyond appearances and social status. But as he walked back to his mansion, guilt gnawed at him. How would Emma react when she discovered the truth? Was he doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past? Jack didn't know it, but his decision to disguise himself would not only test Emma's heart, but would also trigger a series of events that would shake the foundations of his world and reveal truths that both had kept hidden. For a long time, night fell over the city, as Jack, back in his mansion, looked out the window at the distant lights. Somewhere out there, Emma continued with her life, unaware of the true scope of their encounter today. Jack closed his eyes, remembering the warmth of her smile, the depth of her gaze. "Let the game begin," he whispered to himself, not knowing that fate had surprises in store that neither of them could imagine. Chapter 2. Shadows of the Past. Emma Taylor closed the door of her small apartment and collapsed on the worn sofa, exhausted after another long day at the restaurant. Her thoughts flew to the mysterious man she had met that morning. There was something in his eyes, a mixture of kindness and sadness, that intrigued her. She got up and walked to the small desk in the corner of the living room. She opened the top drawer and took out a crumpled photograph. In it, a younger version of Emma smiled next to her parents in front of an impressive mansion. That photo was all that remained of her previous life, a constant reminder of everything they had lost. The financial scandal that destroyed her family had been sudden and devastating. Overnight, they went. From being one of the most respected families in high society to being pariahs, singled out and abandoned by those they once called friends. Emma closed her eyes, remembering the shame and anger she felt in those days. The resentment towards the upper class, towards those who had betrayed them, still burned inside her. But over the years, that fire had transformed into an unbreakable determination. She swore that she would rebuild her life and that of her parents, but on her own terms, far from the superficiality and betrayal of the world that had rejected them. A knock on the door pulled her out of her thoughts. "Emma, are you awake, honey?" Her mother's voice, Sarah, sounded tired but affectionate. "Come in, Mom," Emma replied, quickly putting the photo away. Sarah entered, her face showing the traces of years of worry and hard work. "I saw you come in a while ago. How was your day?" Emma hesitated for a moment. Should she tell her mother about the strange encounter with that man? She decided not to, at least not yet. "It was fine, the usual," she replied with a forced smile. Sarah sat next to her daughter and took her hands. "Emma, you know you don't have to carry all of this alone. Your father and I could—" "No, Mom," Emma interrupted her firmly. "We've talked about this. You've done enough. It's my turn to take care of you." Sarah sighed, recognizing the determination in her daughter's eyes. It was the same look she had when, at 18, she told them she would leave college to work and support them. "You're so strong, my girl, but sometimes I worry that you're missing out on living your life." Emma hugged her mother, feeling a lump in her throat. "My life is here with you. I don't need anything else." But even as she spoke those words, Emma couldn't help but think of the man from the restaurant. For a brief moment she had felt a connection, a spark of something she thought she had buried, along with her old life. After her mother went to sleep, Emma stayed awake, looking out the window at the illuminated city. Somewhere out there was the world she once knew, the world that had betrayed her. And somewhere, too, was that stranger who had awakened emotions she thought forgotten. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Jack Harrison prepared to sleep in his huge and lonely mansion. The encounter with Emma had stirred up emotions he had kept buried for years. The guilt over Rachel's death, the fear of trusting again, the hope of finding true love, everything mixed in, a whirlwind of emotions. He approached his desk and opened a secret drawer. Inside was a small velvet box. He opened it, revealing an engagement ring. "He never got to give Rachel," he whispered, feeling the weight of years of guilt and remorse. The memory of that fateful night assaulted him once, again. The argument, Rachel's tears, the sound of tires screeching as she drove away in her car, and then the call that changed his life forever. Jack slammed the box shut, trying to push away the memories. He promised himself that this time would be different. With Emma, he would find a way to redeem himself, to love without causing harm. But as he prepared for another night of restless sleep, a part of him couldn't help but wonder, was he repeating the same mistakes? Was it fair to Emma to get involved with someone who carried so much pain and guilt? The night progressed, and in different parts of the city, Jack and Emma lay awake, each fighting their own demons, not knowing that their destinies were about to intertwine in ways that neither of them could imagine. In the darkness of her room, Emma made a decision. Tomorrow, when she saw that man again, she would allow herself to open her heart, if only a little. Perhaps, she thought, it was time to let the past be the past and give the future a chance. What Emma didn't know was that this decision would trigger a series of events that would test not only her heart, but also everything she thought she knew about herself and the world around her. Chapter 3. The Game of Appearances. Morning arrived with a mix of anticipation and nervousness for Jack. He looked in the mirror one more time, making sure his disguise was perfect. Every detail counted: the unkempt beard, the worn clothes, the slightly hunched posture of someone who has known hard times. Meanwhile, at Emma's corner, the young waitress prepared for another day of work. However, today there was something different in her routine. She found herself fixing her hair with more care, choosing her best uniform. She told herself it had nothing to do with the possibility of seeing that mysterious man again, but deep down, she knew she was lying. The bell on the door rang and Emma's heart skipped a beat when she saw Jack enter. He sat at the same table as the day before, and she approached, trying to maintain an appearance of calm. "Good morning," Emma greeted with a smile. "The same as yesterday?" Jack nodded, returning her smile. "If it's not too much trouble, I'd also like a bit of your company." Thus began a routine that would repeat itself in the following days. Jack would arrive every morning, asking for a simple coffee and Emma's company. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories and dreams, each revealing parts of themselves they had kept hidden for a long time. For Emma, these moments became a respite from her daily life, a window to a world of possibilities she thought she had lost. Jack, for his part, found himself increasingly captivated by Emma's strength and kindness, forgetting at times that everything was based on a lie. One day, as they were talking, the restaurant door burst open. An elegantly dressed man entered, his presence immediately filling the space. Emma visibly tensed upon seeing him. "Nathan," she murmured, and Jack noticed a tone of recognition and something else in her voice. Fear? Resentment? Nathan Cooper approached their table, his eyes fixed on Emma. "Emma Taylor, what a surprise to find you here," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Jack observed the exchange with growing curiosity and a pang of jealousy he didn't want to admit. Who was this man, and what relationship did he have with Emma? "Nathan," Emma replied with a tense voice. "It's been a long time." Nathan smiled, his eyes scanning Emma's figure with a familiarity that made Jack clench his fists under the table. "Too long, I'd say. Who would have thought I'd find you here?" His tone made it clear that here was the last place he'd expect to see someone like Emma. Emma straightened up, her face a mask of professional calm. "Life takes many turns, Nathan. Can I offer you something?" Nathan seemed to notice Jack's presence for the first time. He looked him up and down with barely disguised disdain. "And who is your friend?" "Jack," he introduced himself, extending a hand that Nathan deliberately ignored. "A pleasure, I'm sure," Nathan said, turning his attention back to Emma. "Actually, I came because I heard rumors that you were working in this establishment. I have a proposal that might interest you." Emma frowned. "I'm not interested in anything you might offer, Nathan." "Oh, but I think you should listen to me," he insisted, lowering his voice. "It's about your family. I could help them recover what they lost." Jack saw the color drain from Emma's face. What secrets did this woman hide who captivated him more each day? "This is neither the time nor the place," Emma said firmly. "If you really want to talk, we can do it after my shift." Nathan smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "As you wish, I'll be waiting." With one last look of disdain towards Jack, he turned and left the restaurant. The silence that followed was tense, filled with unasked questions. Emma quickly excused herself and retreated to the kitchen, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts. Meanwhile, in Jack Harrison's office, the real Jack, not the beggar, his assistant, Olivia, entered with a worried expression. "Mr. Harrison, there's something you need to see," she said. Placing a newspaper on the desk, Jack took it, his eyes widening as he read the headline, "Harrison Empire on the Brink of Collapse, the End of an Era." "What the hell is this?" he growled, quickly flipping through the pages to the main article. "It seems someone has been leaking confidential information to the press," Olivia explained. "The stocks are plummeting." Jack felt the world crumbling around him. Everything he had built, everything he had worked for, was in danger. And the worst part was that he couldn't do anything about it without revealing his true identity to Emma. "Olivia, I need you to call an emergency meeting with the board of directors," he ordered, his mind working at full speed. And find out who's behind these leaks. I want names." As Olivia hurried out, Jack sank into his chair, the weight of his decisions falling on him. How was he going to handle this crisis without neglecting his relationship with Emma? And what role did Nathan play in all of this? Back at the restaurant, Emma finally returned to Jack's table, her eyes red as if she had been crying. "I'm sorry about that," she said quietly. "Nathan is a complicated part of my past." Jack took her hand, forgetting for a moment his role as a beggar. "Emma, you don't have to explain anything to me if you don't want to, but I want you to know that I'm here for you no matter what." Emma looked at him, a mixture of gratitude and something deeper in her eyes. "Thank you, Jack. There are so many things I'd like to tell you, but I don't know where to start." At that moment, Jack was about to confess everything he wanted to tell her who he really was, explain why he had lied. But fear stopped him. Fear of losing her, fear of facing the truth. "When you're ready," he finally said, "I'll be here to listen." What neither of them knew was that their secrets were about to collide in the most unexpected way, and that Nathan Cooper was just the beginning of a storm that threatened to destroy everything they had built. Chapter 4: Secrets and Lies. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions and revelations for Jack and Emma. As their relationship deepened, both struggled with the secrets they kept, each fearing that the truth could destroy what they were building. Jack divided his time between his visits to the restaurant as the humble Jack and frantic meetings in his office as the magnate Harrison, desperately trying to contain the crisis that threatened his empire. The dark circles under his eyes revealed the cost of his double life. One afternoon, as Emma cleaned the tables after closing, Jack watched her, lost in his thoughts. Guilt was eating away at him. How could he keep lying to someone who had become so important to him? "Emma," he began, his voice trembling, "there's something I need to tell you." But before he could continue, the restaurant door burst open. Nathan Cooper entered, his face a mask of barely contained fury. "You," he shouted, pointing at Jack, "you think you can fool me?" Emma stepped between the two men. "Nathan, what are you doing here? The restaurant is closed." Nathan ignored her, his eyes fixed on Jack. "You think I wouldn't recognize you, Harrison? Even with that pathetic disguise?" The world seemed to stop. Jack felt the ground opening beneath his feet. Emma looked at him, confusion giving way to horror in her eyes. "What is he talking about, Jack?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jack opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come out. How to explain the inexplicable? Nathan let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, this is delicious. You haven't told her, have you? Allow me to have that honor." He turned to Emma. "Your dear beggar here is none other than Jack Harrison, the multimillionaire. The same man whose company ruined your family." Emma stepped back as if she had been slapped. "No, it can't be true." But the expression on Jack's face said it all. "Emma, please, let me explain," Jack pleaded, taking a step towards her. "Don't come near me," Emma shouted, tears running down her cheeks. "All this time, was it a lie?" Jack felt his world crumbling. "No, not everything. My feelings for you are real, Emma. You have to believe me." But Emma was already backing towards the door, her face a mixture of pain and betrayal. I can't do this right now." And with that, she ran out into the night. Jack made a move to follow her, but Nathan stopped him. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Harrison. I think you've done enough damage." "And what do you gain from all this, Nathan?" Jack asked, anger replacing the initial shock. Nathan smiled, a cold and calculating smile. "Oh, I gain much more than you imagine. You see, while you were playing beggar, I've been busy. Those leaks to the press my work, and now, with Emma out of the equation, you're completely alone." Jack felt his blood run cold. "It was you all this time." "Well, the great Jack Harrison finally understands," Nathan mocked. "Enjoy watching your empire crumble, Jack, and don't worry about Emma. I'll take care of consoling her." With those words, Nathan left the restaurant, leaving Jack alone with the weight of his lies and the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, Emma ran through the dark streets, tears blurring her vision. Her mind was a whirlwind of emotions: pain, betrayal, anger. How could she have been so stupid? How could she have trusted someone again? Without realizing it, her steps led her to the park where she used to go with her family in the good times. She collapsed on a bench, sobbing uncontrollably. "Emma?" A familiar voice startled her. She looked up to see her mother, Sarah, standing in front of her with a concerned expression on her face. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Emma asked between sobs. Sarah sat next to her daughter, hugging her tightly. "I saw you run from the restaurant, honey. What happened?" And so, in the middle of the night, Emma told her mother everything about Jack, about the lie, about Nathan and the revelations of that night. Sarah listened in silence, stroking her daughter's hair as she did when she was little. "Oh, my girl," Sarah finally said, "love is never simple, is it?" Emma looked up, surprised. "Love? Mom, he lied to me. He ruined us." Sarah sighed. "Yes, he lied to you, and that's wrong. But Emma, I've seen how that man looks at you, and I've seen how you look at him. That can't be faked." "But how can I trust him after this?" Emma asked, her voice broken. "That's a decision only you can make, honey," Sarah replied. "But remember, we all make mistakes. Sometimes the secrets we keep are the ones that hurt us the most." As mother and daughter hugged in the darkness of the park on the other side of the city, Jack Harrison faced the darkest night of his life. His empire was crumbling. The woman he loved hated him, and his enemy held all the cards. But as he looked out the window of his empty mansion, Jack made a decision. He wasn't going to give up without a fight. For his company, for Emma, for the redemption he so longed for. The night was dark, but dawn always comes, and with it, the promise of a new beginning. Although the path would be difficult, Jack was determined to face the consequences of his actions and fight for what really mattered. What none of them knew was that this night of revelations was only the beginning. The secrets that remained to be discovered would shake the foundations of their lives in ways that none of them could imagine. Chapter 5. The price of truth dawn found Jack Harrison in his office, surrounded by papers and with the phone glued to his ear. News of his company's financial crisis had spread like wildfire, and now he was desperately fighting to contain the damage. "No, we won't sell," he insisted firmly to one of his advisors. "Find another solution." He hung up the phone and rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of sleepless nights and impossible decisions. At that moment, Olivia, his faithful assistant, entered the office. "Mr. Harrison, there's something you need to see." She handed him a tablet with the latest financial news. Jack read the headline and felt the ground open beneath his feet. "Nathan Cooper emerges as potential buyer of Harrison Empire." "This can't be happening," Jack muttered, the realization hitting him hard. Nathan's entire plan from the beginning had been this: to weaken his company enough to be able to buy it at a bargain price. Meanwhile, in the Taylor family's small apartment, Emma was preparing to face a new day. The revelations of the previous night still weighed on her like a slab. "Are you sure you want to go to work today, honey?" Sarah asked, worried about her daughter's emotional state. Emma nodded with determination. "I have to, Mom. I can't hide forever." When Emma arrived at the restaurant, she was surprised to find Nathan waiting for her at the door. "Emma," he greeted her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I was hoping to talk to you." She looked at him cautiously. "Nathan, I don't think this is the time." "Please," he insisted, "just a few minutes. There's something you need to know about Jack Harrison." Against her better judgment, Emma agreed. They sat at a secluded table, and Nathan began to speak. "I know you're hurt by what happened last night," Nathan began, his voice soft and seemingly understanding. "But there's more at stake here than you imagine." Emma looked at him distrustfully. "What do you mean?" Nathan took a folder out of his briefcase and placed it on the table. "These are documents that prove that Jack Harrison was not only responsible for your family's ruin, but he did it deliberately." With trembling hands, Emma opened the folder. Graphs, financial reports, and emails filled the pages. Although she didn't understand all the terms, the general message was clear. According to these documents, Jack had orchestrated the fall of her father's company. "No, this can't be true," Emma murmured, feeling the world spinning around her. Nathan put a hand on hers, a gesture of false comfort. "I'm sorry, Emma. I know it's hard to accept. but Jack Harrison is not the man he pretends to be. While Emma struggled to assimilate this new information, on the other side of the city, Jack was in a heated discussion with his board of directors. "We can't sell," he insisted, slamming the table in frustration. "If we do, we'll be handing everything we've worked for to Cooper on a silver platter." One of the board members, an older man named Robert, looked at him with concern. "Jack, I understand your position, but we have to be realistic. The stocks are in free fall. Investors are scared if we don't do something soon, there won't be anything left to save." Jack ran a hand through his hair, desperation growing inside him. He knew Robert was right, but the idea of giving up, of losing everything— no, there had to be another way. At that moment, his phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. "I have information that could save your company. Meet me in Central Park in an hour. Come alone. S." Jack frowned. Who was S? And what information could be so valuable? Despite his doubts, he knew he didn't have many options. "I need a recess," he announced to the board. "We'll continue this discussion in 2 hours." Meanwhile, back at the restaurant, Emma was struggling with her emotions. Jack's betrayal, Nathan's revelations, everything mixed in a whirlwind of confusion and pain. "What am I supposed to do with this?" she finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. Nathan leaned towards her, his eyes shining, with an intensity Emma hadn't noticed before. "Help me stop him, Emma. Together we can make him pay for what he did to your family." Emma looked at him, surprised by the vehemence in his voice. "How?" "I have a plan," Nathan replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "but I need your help to carry it out." At that moment, something in Nathan's expression made Emma pause. There was something off about all this. Something that didn't fit. I need time to think," she finally said, closing the folder and standing up. Nathan seemed momentarily disconcerted, but quickly regained his composure. "Of course, I understand to take all the time you need. But remember, Emma, this could be your only chance to get justice." As Emma watched Nathan leave the restaurant, a feeling of unease settled in her stomach. Something wasn't right, but she couldn't pinpoint what. With trembling hands, she took out her phone and, after a moment of hesitation, sent a message to a number she had sworn never to use. "Jack Harrison's, we need to talk, it's urgent, meet me in Central Park in an hour." As she waited for the response, Emma couldn't help but feel that she was about to open a Pandora's box, but there was no turning back now. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. What none of them knew was that their paths were about to cross in the most unexpected way, and that the revelations that would emerge from this encounter would change the course of their lives. Forever. Chapter 6. Crossroads of Destiny. Central Park bustled with activity on that sunny afternoon, oblivious to the drama that was about to unfold. On its paths, Jack arrived first, his heart beating hard as he scanned the crowd for his mysterious informant. Emma appeared minutes later, her red and swollen eyes revealing hours of crying. When their gazes met, the world seemed to stop for an instant. "Emma," Jack whispered, taking a step towards her. No," she interrupted him, raising a hand. "Before you say anything, I need you to see this." She took out the folder Nathan had given her and handed it to him. Jack opened it, his face paling as he read, This is not possible, I never." "So it's a lie?" Emma asked, her voice trembling between hope and fear. Jack looked at her, his eyes full of a mixture of pain and determination. "Emma, I've lied to you about many things, but this is a fabrication. I never tried to ruin your family. You have to believe me." Emma wanted to believe him, but doubt clung to her like a second skin. "How can I trust you after everything that's happened?" Before Jack could respond, a familiar voice interrupted them. Well, what a touching reunion." They both turned to see Nathan approaching, a sardonic smile on his face. "What are you doing here?" Emma demanded, confusion giving way to suspicion. Nathan shrugged with false innocence. "Oh, just passing by. What a coincidence to find you both." Jack stepped forward, placing himself protectively in front of Emma. Enough games, Cooper. I know it was you who leaked information to the press. What do you really want? Nathan's smile faded, revealing an expression of cold determination. What I want, Harrison, is to see you fall, to see how everything you've built crumbles around you. Emma looked between the two men, realization hitting her like a freight train. You planned all of this, the documents, the crisis in Jack's company. Nathan clapped slowly. Bravo, Emma, you were always the smartest of the two. Yes, I planned it, all years of planning, waiting for the perfect moment to destroy Jack Harrison. Why? Jack asked, confusion evident in his voice. What did I do to deserve so much hatred? Nathan's eyes shone with barely contained fury. What did you do to me? You destroyed my family, Harrison, your father, and you took everything from us, left us in ruin. And now, finally, it's my turn to return the favor. Jack paled, the memory of an old business decision hitting him hard, the merger of the companies. Nathan, that was years ago. We had no idea that. I don't care if you knew or not, Nathan shouted, attracting the attention of passers-by. The result is the same. My father died in misery, and I swore that I would make the Harrisons pay. Emma observed the exchange, her mind working at full speed. All the pieces were starting to fit together. Nathan's sudden appearance, his interest in her, the falsified documents. You used my feelings, she finally said, her voice broken by betrayal. You used me to get to Jack. Nathan looked at her, a spark of something akin to remorse crossing his face for an instant. I'm sorry, Emma, I really am. But in war and love, everything goes. Jack took a step towards Nathan, anger replacing the initial shock. If your problem is with me, face me directly, leave Emma out of this. Nathan let out a bitter laugh. Oh, but she is a crucial part of my plan, Jack. You see, I'm not only going to take your company from you, I'm going to take everything you love. At that moment, several men in suits approached, surrounding Jack and Emma. What is this? Emma demanded, fear. Growing inside her, Nathan smiled, a cold and calculating smile. This, dear Emma, is the end of the game, Jack Harrison. You're under arrest for fraud and market manipulation. Jack looked around, realizing he was trapped. Emma, he said, turning to her, whatever happens, remember that my feelings for you were always real. As the men took Jack away, Emma stood there, paralyzed by shock and confusion. Nathan approached her, placing a hand on her shoulder. It's better this way, Emma. Now we can start over without lies or deceptions. But Emma jerked away abruptly, her eyes filled with a new determination. You're wrong, Nathan. This isn't over. As she watched Jack being taken away, Emma made a decision. She didn't know who to trust or what to believe, but she was sure of one thing. She was going to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. What none of them knew was that this dramatic turn of events was just the beginning. The darkest secrets were yet to be revealed, and the real game was just beginning. The days following, Jack's arrest were a whirlwind of emotions and revelations for Emma. The news exploded like a bomb. Magnate Jack Harrison arrested for massive fraud. The media talked about nothing else, and the Harrison name was on everyone's lips. Emma felt trapped in the eye of a hurricane. On one hand, Jack's betrayal still hurt deeply. On the other, Nathan's words echoed in her mind, sowing doubts about everything she thought she knew. One afternoon, while cleaning the restaurant tables with more force than necessary, trying to channel her frustration, the doorbell rang. Emma looked up and found herself face to face with an elegant, middle-aged woman. Emma Taylor, the woman asked, her voice soft but firm. Emma nodded, intrigued. Yes, that's me. How can I help you? The woman looked around before speaking. My name is Olivia Reed. I was Jack Harrison's personal assistant. I need to speak with you in private. Emma's heart skipped a beat. What could Jack's assistant want? Cautiously, she guided her to a secluded table. Miss Taylor, Olivia began once they were seated, I know you have every reason to distrust Jack, but there are things you need to know, things that could change everything. Emma looked at her skeptically. Why should I believe you? How do I know this isn't another trick? Olivia pulled a USB drive from her purse. Because I have proof that Jack is innocent and that Nathan Cooper is behind all of this. Meanwhile, in jail, Jack faced the reality of his situation. Sitting in his cell, he went over and over the events that had led him there. How had he not seen Nathan's plan coming? How had he been so blind? His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of his lawyer, Michael Donovan. "Jack, we need to talk," Michael said, his face serious. "The situation is grave. The evidence against you is solid." Jack ran a hand over his face, exhausted. "It's false, Michael. All of this is an elaborate revenge by Nathan Cooper." Michael nodded, thoughtful. "I know, but proving it won't be easy. We need something concrete, something that demonstrates Cooper's manipulation." At that moment, Jack remembered something. Wait, there might be something. An old project, something I was working on before all this started. If I could access my files. "It's risky," Michael warned. "Any move you make now will be viewed with suspicion." Jack looked at him with determination. "We don't have any other choice. It's time to counterattack." Back at the restaurant, Emma listened attentively as Olivia revealed the truth behind Jack's actions. The disguise, the lie, it was all because he really fell in love with you, Emma. He was afraid you would reject him if you knew who he really was, Olivia explained. Emma felt her heart constrict. But what about the documents that showed he ruined my family? Olivia shook her head. Falsified Nathan has been planning this for years, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. Your family's fall was collateral damage from a business merger, but Jack never intended to harm them. As Emma processed this information, her phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. "If you want to know the truth about Nathan Cooper, meet me at the old warehouse by the port at midnight. Come alone, S." Emma looked at the message, her mind working at full speed. Who was S? And what did they know about Nathan? "Miss Taylor," Olivia's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "I know it's a lot to take in, but we need your help. Jack needs you." Emma looked at her, a new determination shining in her eyes. "What do I have to do?" Meanwhile, in his luxurious office, Nathan Cooper celebrated his victory. Everything had gone according to plan. Jack was in jail, his company on the brink of collapse, and soon, very soon, the entire Harrison empire would be his. But Nathan didn't count on a crucial factor. Sam Winters, his former partner and the only one who knew the complete truth behind his vendetta against the Harrisons. Sam observed the city from the window of his apartment, the weight of guilt on his shoulders. He had been Nathan's accomplice for years, blinded by the promise of wealth and power. But now, seeing how the lives of innocent people were crumbling, he knew he had to do something. He took his phone and sent a message. "It's time for the truth to come to light. I'll be waiting for you tonight." That night, as the city slept, 3 people headed towards destinations that would change the course of their lives forever. Emma, her heart pounding, approached the old warehouse by the port. Jack, in his cell, worked frantically on a plan to prove his innocence. And Sam, the enigmatic S, waited in the shadows, ready to reveal secrets that would shake the foundations of everything they believed they knew. What none of them imagined was that their paths were about to cross in the most unexpected way, and that the revelations of that night would change the game completely. The truth, so elusive and dangerous, would finally come to light, but at a cost that none of them was prepared to pay. Chapter 8. Revelations in the Darkness. The night was cold and silent when Emma arrived at the old warehouse by the port. Her heart was pounding as she advanced through the shadows, every creak and whisper of wind putting her on alert. "Hello," she called softly, her voice echoing in the empty space. "Is anyone here?" Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. "Emma Taylor, thank you for coming," said a middle-aged man, his face marked by years of worry. "Who are you?" Emma asked instinctively, stepping back. "My name is Sam Winters," the man replied, "and I have information that could exonerate Jack Harrison and expose Nathan Cooper's true crimes." Meanwhile, in his cell, Jack worked frantically. With his lawyer's help, he had managed to access a computer for a brief period. His fingers flew over the keyboard, desperately searching for the files that could prove his innocence. Come on," he muttered to himself, aware that Every second counted. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. "I found it," he exclaimed, turning to Michael. "Here's everything, the hidden transactions, the money movements, everything that proves Nathan was behind the collapse of my company." Michael quickly reviewed the documents, his expression changing from skepticism to surprise. "This is incredible, Jack. With this we could—" But before he could finish the sentence, the cell door burst open. 2 guards entered, their faces serious. "Time's up, Harrison," one of them growled. "The lawyer has to leave now." Jack looked at Michael desperately. "You have to take this to the prosecutor," he whispered, discreetly passing him a USB drive. "It's our only chance." Back at the warehouse, Emma listened attentively as Sam revealed the truth behind Nathan's revenge. "Nathan and I were partners years ago," Sam explained, "when the Harrison company absorbed ours. Nathan took it as a personal betrayal. He swore he would get revenge, that he would destroy Jack and everything he loved." Emma felt short of breath. But why wait so long? Sam sighed heavily. "Nathan is patient and calculating. He waited years, infiltrating Jack's company, earning his trust, and then he saw you." "Me?" Emma asked, surprised. "Yes. When Nathan discovered that Jack had fallen in love with you, he saw the perfect opportunity for his final revenge. He would not only destroy Jack's empire, but he would take away the one thing that really mattered to him. You." Emma felt the world spinning around her. Everything, from the first encounter with Jack disguised as a beggar to the arrest, had been part of Nathan's elaborate plan. "I have proof," Sam continued, pulling a folder from his jacket. "Documents, recordings, everything you need to expose Nathan and free Jack." As Emma took the folder with trembling hands, a sudden noise startled them. Footsteps approaching. "Quick," Sam whispered, pushing Emma towards a back exit. "You must go. It's dangerous for you to be found here." But before they could reach the door, a familiar voice resonated in the warehouse. "Well, well, what a touching reunion." Emma and Sam turned to find themselves face to face with Nathan Cooper, flanked by 2 armed men. "Nathan," Emma gasped, instinctively clutching the folder to her chest. Nathan smiled, a cold and calculating smile. "Emma, dear, what a disappointment. And Sam, my old friend, I always knew you were weak, but betraying me, I didn't see that coming." Sam stepped forward, placing himself protectively in front of Emma. "It's over, Nathan. The truth will come to light." Nathan's smile faded, replaced by an expression of cold fury. "Oh no, my dear Sam, this is far from over." With a gesture of his hand, the armed men advanced. Emma felt panic invading her. Was this the end? Had they come so far only to fail at the last moment? But just when everything seemed lost, the warehouse lights suddenly came on. Police sirens echoed in the distance, rapidly approaching. "Police!" A voice shouted, "Everyone freeze!" Chaos erupted. Nathan and his men tried to flee, but found themselves surrounded. Emma, still clutching the folder, watched in amazement as the police burst into the warehouse, led by Olivia. "How?" she began to ask, but Olivia interrupted her with a smile. "Never underestimate a good assistant," she said, winking at her. "We had to make sure you were safe." As Nathan was handcuffed and taken away, shouting threats and accusations, Emma felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The truth had finally come to light, but the night was not over yet. There was still one last revelation, one that would change everything. Emma thought she knew about her past and her future. "Emma," Olivia said softly, "there's something else you need to know. Something about your family and their connection to the Harrisons." And so, as dawn approached, Emma prepared to face a truth that would shake the foundations of her world and lead her to make the most important decision of her life. Dawn found Emma sitting in an interrogation room at the police station, her mind still processing the events of the previous night. Across from her, Olivia looked at her with a mixture of compassion and determination. "Emma," Olivia began softly, "what I'm about to tell you may be difficult to hear, but it's crucial that you know." Emma nodded, bracing herself for whatever was to come. "I'm ready," she said, though her voice trembled slightly. Olivia took an old photograph from an envelope. In it, Two couples smiled at the camera, clearly celebrating something. Emma immediately recognized her parents, younger but unmistakable. The other couple looked vaguely familiar. These, Olivia said, pointing to the unknown couple, are Jack's parents. Emma felt the air escape from her lungs. What? But how? Your parents and Jack's didn't just know each other, Emma. They were best friends and business partners, Olivia explained. This photo was taken the day they signed their first big contract together. Emma's mind was spinning. How was it possible that she had never known this? But then what happened? Why? Olivia sighed deeply. The fall of your family's company wasn't Jack's fault or his father's. It was the result of a series of bad decisions and the manipulation of a third partner. Nathan, Emma whispered, the pieces fitting together in her mind. Olivia nodded. Exactly. Nathan Cooper was the son of that third partner. When his father was expelled from the company for embezzlement, he swore revenge against both families. Emma stood up from the chair, unable to contain her agitation. But why did my parents never tell me any of this? Why did Jack? Your parents wanted to protect you, Emma, Olivia explained. And Jack he didn't know until recently. When he discovered the truth, he was already in love with you. He feared that if he told you, you would think it had all been part of some plan. At that moment, the door to the room opened. Jack's lawyer, Michael Donovan, entered with a triumphant expression on his face. Miss Taylor, Olivia, he greeted, I have news. The evidence that Sam provided, along with the documents Jack managed to recover, has been enough. They're releasing Jack right now. Emma felt her heart skip a beat. Jack was free. The truth had come to light. But what did all this mean for them? Meanwhile, in another part of the police station, Jack Harrison was leaving his cell, blinking at the bright light of the hallway. He felt dazed, as if the last few days had been a dream from which he was finally waking up. Jack, a familiar voice called him. He turned to see his father, William Harrison, standing at the end of the hallway. Dad? Jack said, his voice broken with emotion. He ran to his father and hugged him tightly. William returned the hug, tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry, son. All of this, if I had told you the truth from the beginning. Jack pulled away, looking at his father in confusion. What are you talking about, Dad? William sighed deeply. There's something you need to know about the Taylors, about Emma. And so, while Emma struggled to assimilate the revelations in the interrogation room, Jack received his own dose of hidden truths in the hallway of the police station. The truth about the connection between their families, Nathan's role in the fall of both companies, and the secrets their parents had kept for years finally came to light. But as the pieces of the puzzle fit together, new questions arose. How would this affect their relationship? Could they overcome the lies and secrets that had surrounded them from the beginning? At that moment, as if fate had decided it was time for them to face each other, Jack and Emma found themselves face to face in the hallway of the police station. Time seemed to stop as they looked at each other, each seeing in the other's eyes the reflection of their own emotional turmoil. Emma, Jack began, his voice barely a whisper. Jack, she responded, taking a tentative step towards him. But before they could say anything more, a commotion erupted at the entrance of the police station. Screams and the sound of breaking glass filled the air. Look out, someone shouted. He's got a gun! Amidst the chaos, a familiar figure emerged, his eyes shining with desperate madness. Nathan Cooper, somehow free from his handcuffs, held a gun and was pointing it directly at Jack and Emma. If I fall, Nathan growled, you fall with me. The sound of a gunshot echoed in the hallway, and the world seemed to stop for an eternal instant. In that critical moment, with imminent danger and newly revealed truths weighing on them, Jack and Emma faced not only the physical threat from Nathan, but also the decisive moment of their relationship. Could they overcome this last obstacle? Or would this be the tragic end to their complicated love story? The fate of both hung by a thread, and the decisions they would make in the next few seconds would determine not only their future, but that of everyone involved in this intricate web of lies, love, and redemption. Chapter 10. The Price of Redemption. The echo of the gunshot reverberated in the hallway of the police station, followed by a deafening silence. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Jack, acting on pure instinct, had thrown himself in front of Emma at the last second. Now he lay on the floor, a pool of blood slowly spreading beneath his body. "Jack!" Emma screamed, falling to her knees beside him. Her hands trembled as she pressed on the wound, desperately, trying to stop the bleeding. "Please, don't leave me. Not now." Nathan, still holding the smoking gun, looked as surprised as everyone else. His face was a mask of shock and horror, as if only now realizing the gravity of his actions. I didn't mean to," he stammered, the gun falling from his shaking hands. In a matter of seconds, police officers pounced on Nathan, subduing him and handcuffing him once again. This time, there would be no escape. While chaos unfolded around her, Emma remained focused solely on Jack. Their eyes met, and despite the pain, Jack managed to muster a weak smile. "Emma," he whispered, his voice barely audible, "I'm sorry for everything." "Shh." She silenced him, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. "Don't talk. You're going to be okay. You have to be okay." The paramedics arrived quickly, gently moving Emma aside to attend to Jack. As they lifted him onto the stretcher, Jack weakly grasped Emma's hand. "Whatever happens," he said, struggling to keep his eyes open, "I want you to know that I love you. It's always been real." And with those words, Jack lost consciousness, leaving Emma with her heart in her throat as she watched him being taken to the ambulance. The following hours were a blur of hospital corridors, fluorescent lights, and the endless wait outside the operating room. Emma felt like she was living a nightmare, unable to process everything that had happened in such a short time. Sarah and Robert, Emma's parents, arrived at the hospital, having been informed of the situation upon seeing her daughter. Sarah ran to embrace her. "Oh, honey," she sobbed, holding Emma tightly. "We're so sorry. We should have told you the truth a long time ago." Robert, with tears in his eyes, nodded. "We thought we were protecting you, but we only made things worse." Emma pulled away, looking at her parents with a mixture of confusion and pain. "Why? Why did you keep so many secrets?" Before they could answer, William Harrison approached the group. His face showed the weight of years of guilt and regret. "The fault is mine," he said, his voice broken with emotion. "I was the one who insisted on keeping the secret. I thought I was protecting our families, but I only managed to cause more pain." And so in the hospital waiting room, while Jack's life hung by a thread, the complete truth finally came to light. William recounted how, years ago, they had discovered the manipulations of Nathan's father. How, in an attempt to protect both families, they had decided to separate and cut all ties. "We thought that if we kept our children apart, they would be safe from the Coopers' revenge," William explained. "But we underestimated Nathan's determination." Emma listened, feeling that each revelation was like a physical blow. Her entire life, everything she thought she knew about her family and her past, was crumbling before her eyes. "And Jack?" she finally asked. "Did he know any of this?" William shook his head. "Not until recently. When he fell in love with you, he started investigating. That's when he discovered the truth about our families." Suddenly, everything made sense to Emma. Jack's disguise, his reluctance to reveal his true identity, his internal struggle. It had all been for her, to protect her, and out of fear of losing her if she knew the truth. At that moment, the surgeon came out of the operating room. Everyone stood up, holding their breath. "The operation was a success," the doctor announced, provoking a collective sigh of relief. "He lost a lot of blood, but we managed to stabilize him. Now it all depends on him." Emma felt her legs give way, and Sarah held her as she collapsed into a chair. Jack was alive. They had a chance. While the others talked with the doctor, Emma sat there, lost in her thoughts. The last 24 hours had been an emotional roller coaster, revealing truths that had been hidden for decades. Now, with all the cards on the table, Emma faced a crucial decision. Could she forgive the lies and secrets? Could she build a future with Jack, knowing everything she knew now? As she observed the Harrison and Taylor families united for the first time in years by their shared concern for Jack, Emma felt something change within her. The resentment and distrust she had harbored for so long began to dissolve, replaced by a deeper and more compassionate understanding. Love, she realized, wasn't perfect. It came with scars, with mistakes, and with the constant need to forgive and be forgiven. And perhaps, she thought as she stood up to join her family, that was the kind of love worth fighting for. With that resolution in mind, Emma prepared to face whatever came, knowing that the path to redemption and happiness wouldn't be easy, but trusting that, together, they could overcome anything. The days that followed were a mixture of hope and anxiety for Emma and the Harrison and Taylor families Jack fought to recover in the intensive care unit, and Emma barely left his side. One afternoon, as Emma held Jack's hand, she felt a slight squeeze. His eyes opened slowly, focusing on her with difficulty. "Emma," he whispered, his voice hoarse from disuse. Emma felt her heart skip a beat. "Jack," she replied, tears springing to her eyes. "You're awake." Jack tried to smile, though the effort was evident. "I couldn't leave you alone." Emma laughed through her tears, leaning in to gently kiss his forehead. "You fool, don't ever scare me like that again." As Jack recovered, the outside world kept turning. Nathan Cooper faced multiple charges, from fraud to attempted murder. His empire, built on lies and manipulation, was quickly crumbling. One morning, as Emma helped Jack with his physical therapy, William Harrison and Robert Taylor entered the hospital room. "Son," William began, his voice laden with emotion, "Robert and I have been talking. We believe it's time to correct the mistakes of the past." Jack and Emma exchanged a curious look. Robert continued, "We've decided to merge our companies again, this time without secrets, without manipulations, a new beginning for everyone." The news was received with amazement and joy. It was as if a circle was closing, healing old wounds and opening new possibilities. As the weeks passed, Jack grew stronger, not only physically, but also in his relationship with Emma. Each day brought new conversations, revelations, and above all, a deeper and more mature love. One afternoon, as they walked through the hospital garden, Jack stopped, taking Emma's hands in his. "Emma," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "these last few months have been crazy. We've been through so much, we've made mistakes, we've hurt each other, but through all of that, my love for you has only grown." Emma felt her heart racing, anticipating what was coming. Jack continued, "I don't have a ring right now, and I'm certainly not on one knee," he joked, pointing to his cane. "But Emma Taylor, would you do me the honor of marrying me? No disguises, no secrets, just us." Emma felt tears running down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered before throwing herself into his arms. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They kissed, sealing their promise of a future together, no matter what obstacles they might face. Meanwhile, in a cell at the state prison, Nathan Cooper looked out the small window, reflecting on the consequences of his actions. The revenge he had nurtured for years now tasted bitter. A guard approached his cell. "Cooper, you have a visitor." Nathan turned, surprised. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he saw who his visitor was, his surprise turned to shock. Sam Winters, his former partner and friend, stood before him. "Sam," Nathan said, his voice barely a whisper, "what are you doing here?" Sam looked at him with a mixture of sadness and determination. "I came to say goodbye, Nathan, and to tell you that I forgive you." Nathan felt something break inside him. Years of anger and resentment began to dissolve, replaced by deep remorse. "I'm sorry," Nathan sobbed, dropping his mask of toughness. "I'm so sorry." Sam nodded, a tear escaping his eye. "I know, and I hope that someday you can forgive yourself." As Sam walked away, Nathan stood looking out the window, feeling for the first time in years the weight of his actions and the possibility of redemption. Back at the hospital, Jack and Emma shared the news of their engagement with their families. The joy was palpable, a celebration not only of their love, but of the reunion of two families that had been separated for too long. Sarah hugged her daughter tightly. "I'm so proud of you, my girl. You found the strength to forgive and love." William approached Jack, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Son, you've proven to be a better man than I ever was. Your mother would be so proud." As the family celebrated, Emma and Jack shared a knowing look. They knew the path hadn't been easy, and they would surely face more challenges in the future. But they were ready to face them. Together, with honesty, love, and the strength they had found in each other, the sun was setting over the city, bathing the sky in golden and pink hues. It was the end of a chapter in their lives, but also the beginning of a new one. A future full of promises, built on the foundations of truth and forgiveness. Emma rested her head on Jack's shoulder, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced in years. "I love you," she whispered. Jack hugged her tightly, grateful for this second chance. "And I love you," he replied, "now and always." And so, as day gave way to night, our protagonists prepared to write the next chapter of their story. A story of love, redemption, and the transformative power of truth. Chapter 12. A New Dawn 6. Months later. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of Emma's room, gently waking her. She stretched, a smile forming on her lips as she remembered what day it was today. Finally, she would marry Jack. As she prepared, surrounded by her mother and friends, Emma reflected on the path that had led her to this moment. Every trial, every obstacle, every tear shed, it had all been worth it. In another part of the city, Jack adjusted his tie in front of the mirror, his father standing beside him. "Son," William said, his voice laden with emotion, "I'm so proud of the man you've become." Jack smiled, hugging his father. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." The venue chosen for the ceremony was significant. The old restaurant, where it all began, now renovated and expanded. It had become the symbol of the union of the Harrison and Taylor families. When Emma walked towards the altar, the world seemed to stop for Jack. She was radiant, her white dress contrasting with the blush on her cheeks. Their eyes met, and at that moment, all the doubts and fears of the past vanished. "We are gathered here," the officiant began, "to celebrate the union of two souls who have found their way back to each other through adversity." The vows were simple but profound, promises of love, honesty, and mutual support. When they finally kissed as husband and wife, the applause and cheers from their loved ones filled the air. The reception was a mix of joy and nostalgia. Sarah and Robert Taylor danced together for the first time in years, their faces lit up with happiness. William Harrison raised his glass, toasting to the future and to the memories of those who were no longer with them. In a quiet moment during the party, Jack led Emma aside. "I have a surprise for you," he said, his eyes shining with excitement. He guided her to a secluded room where, to Emma's amazement, Sam Winters was waiting. "Sam?" "Emma," exclaimed, hugging him. "What are you doing here?" Sam smiled, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "I brought a very special wedding gift." Jack took the envelope, opening it carefully. Inside were legal documents and a letter. "They're the papers for the complete merger of our companies," Jack explained, his voice trembling slightly. "And this?" Emma took the letter, her eyes widening as she recognized the handwriting. "It's from Nathan." The letter was a full confession and an apology. Nathan admitted to all his crimes and expressed deep remorse for the harm he had caused. "He's agreed to testify," Sam said. "All charges against you will be definitively dropped." Emma and Jack looked at each other, overwhelmed with emotion. It was the closure they needed, the final link in their path to true freedom. "Thank you, Sam," Jack said, hugging his friend, "for everything." As they returned to the party, Emma paused for a moment, looking around. She saw her parents dancing, William laughing with old friends, their loved ones celebrating love and life. "What are you thinking about?" Jack asked, wrapping his arms around her. Emma smiled, leaning into him. how lucky we are, how despite everything, love always finds a way." Jack nodded, gently kissing her forehead. "And this is just the beginning." As the night progressed, the guests began to say their goodbyes. Emma and Jack stayed for a moment longer, dancing slowly on the empty dance floor. "Are you ready for our next adventure, Mrs. Harrison?" Jack asked with a mischievous smile. Emma laughed, moving closer to him. "With you, I'm ready for anything." And so, under the stars and with the promise of a bright future ahead, Emma and Jack closed a chapter of their lives and prepared to write a new one. Together, the love that had been born in the shadows of fortune now shone with its own light, a beacon of hope and a testament to the power of forgiveness, honesty, and true love. As they drove away in their car, heading for their honeymoon, they left behind not only their loved ones but also the ghosts of the past. Ahead of them stretched a road full of possibilities, a future they would build together, day by day, with the strength of love that had overcome all trials. And so, with the dawn of a new day, Emma and Jack embarked on the greatest adventure of all, a shared life filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a hard-earned, happily ever after.